Good morning, everyone. We'll just start our today's class with the development of free electron theory. So, in the last class, we just discussed about the free electron theory postulates. What are the important postulates of free electron theory? So, why it is actually called free electron theory? Why? Because as if you know that in gaseous state, how the molecules are freely moving, in the same way, the electrons are also moving. In this particular phenomena, so we just resemble or compare these free electron with the free molecules in the gas as if the electrons are nothing but the free molecules which are moving inside the gas. So that is the reason that we just call this electrons, movement of electrons as free electron. And we say that free electrons which are moving, so they are constituting electron gas. Now that was the concept which is given by the Drude and Lorentz, right? So now this is called a classical free electron theory. So we just discuss the above concept in the last class, right? So now in today's class, we'll just move to the next session, that is the next topic of Chronic and Penny. So we just discussed the Chronic and Penny model, how according to Chronic and Penny, the electron is moving inside the crystal, metallic crystal, and according to Chronic Penny, they says that they are moving in a like a square well. See, like how the square, you can just see this schematic diagram, so which resemble a square shape. So what it means actually, the energy talks about the energy of the electron. So when the electron is moving inside the crystal, so the potential inside the crystal will be looking like a square well. And and why we are talking about, see, you can just see the schematic diagram, we just talked about the periodic lattice. So whenever a electron is traveling in a different perspective like a crystal, it will take the characteristic of crystal. So once some character is taken by the electron, we say that in this case of metallic crystal, we say that that character is nothing but that is called what you can say a periodic lattice, right? So that is given by the concept of small a. So we just the Chronic Penny says that the periodic potential in a crystal is actually in the form of a sequential array square wells, right? We can just see this schematic diagram. So this particular concept has been given us by the Chronic and Penny. So what the important conclusions we just discussed about the important postulates or the conclusions which is given by the Chronic and Penny, right? So you can just see this waveform. The electron is moving in this particular fashion, right? And we just discussed about the equation. This was the equation, right? Cos k is equal to p sine alpha a by alpha a plus cos alpha a. Now this is the movement of the electron, right? When it will be in the form of a wave. So that wave is nothing but it is taken it as a sine wave or cosine wave, and definitely when we take sine or cosine wave, so the minimum and maximum value lies between -1 to +1. You already know in your lower mathematics classes that the minimum and maximum value of the sine and cosine wave is nothing but or sine and cos minimum and maximum value is +1 to -1, right, which is lying between plus and -1. And we just discussed about the equations. In the equation we had k, right? A we have just discussed, that is called lattice constant, or we say periodic lattice. So k is what? Wave vector. So when the electron is traveling in the form of a wave, so definitely it is mathematical parameter which tells us the character of the wave, right? So that is called k. We say that that is a wave vector, and definitely you find that alpha a is the angle. And what is actually alpha? Alpha is given by 2 by h under root of 2me, where e is your energy, which is having the values from lying the values from -1 to +1, as we had as we said in the case of the waveform. So it is a sine and cosine wave. Definitely it will have a negative 1 to plus 1 value. And V naught, when we have seen the schematic diagram of the chronic and penny, you can just see this schematic diagram. So here you can just see this is called V naught. So here we just discussed that V naught is a potential which is nothing but it will be increasing the potential. See, when we say a square wave or a potential V naught, so now this particular square wave is having a width, right? That width is given by some omega value, or we say that that is called width of the barrier. So the value of V naught omega remains constant, and P here resembles the scattering power of the potential barrier, or we'll just say that that is called barrier strength. So now this particular aspect we discussed in the last class. So what is happening when the angle is increasing, right? So in the conclusion of the chronic and penny, they have given us the information regarding the aspect of what is happening actually when the value of angle is increasing, and it is increasing further. So what will be the schematic diagram that we have shown in the figure? You can just see this is the figure when the value of alpha is increasing, and what is happening when the strength of the barrier, that is P, is increasing. Now that is also we have shown with the schematic diagram, and why what is happening actually when P is tending to infinity. Now that has been shown by an isolated atom here. So now this was the conclusions which has been made by the chronic and penny, and you just see that when P is tending to 0, so you can just see P is as the P potential strength of the barrier is tending to 0. Now this type of waveform you will observe, right? So there will be no energy level when P tends to 0 and the particle is completely free. Thus, when you change the value of P from 0 to infinity, we find that the free electron is completely bounded. Now this was the previous what you can say assumptions which has been made by the chronic and penny, and we just discuss about the basic concept of the band theory which is existing in the solids. So we just studied about the solids, right? In the chapter 1, that is unit 1, we have already discussed about the characteristic of the solid. Now here in this unit 2, we are actually discussing about the band theory of solids. So in the unit 1, you just discuss about complete information. You got complete information regarding the solid. Now here we are getting an information regarding the energy which is existing in the solid. So now that is the reason that we just study about the band theory of solid. So before going to band theory of solid, you can just see that the we just start with a single atom. See what is happening to the energy of the atom, right? When it is a single, or we just say in the case of hydrogen, we just consider the case of an hydrogen. When you consider the case of hydrogen, so hydrogen is having only a single atom. You can just see the diagram here which has been shown to you. This is a single atom, and you had the hydrogen atom is having a single energy level, or we say that when we talk about a single atom, it is called an isolated atom. So now that energy level is of that particular atom is given by E1. You can just see this is the atom and this is the energy level. So when you increase this atom right further, so what will happen is that, so it means that when you talk about, see, for your comfortableness, for your understanding level, we just started with this. Let us consider we just start with the hydrogen. So now in this is the case of helium. So helium is consisting of two atoms. Now definitely you'll have two energy levels like this. If you go from increasing out of the order of the atomic number, so you'll get the atoms are generally increasing. You can just see this one single atom, two atoms, three atoms, you get three energy levels. If n number of atoms are there, n energy levels. Now this n energy levels, what is happening is that these energy levels are, when you see it with the electron microscope, you'll find that there is a band of energy levels, right? You cannot differentiate the energy levels. It seems that it is completely mixed. Now that was called the n energy level. Now that is called that is the reason that we say that is called band theory of solids. So this is a, see, we are interested, our objective is to know what is actually the energy band structure of a solid, which will determine, or which will say that that how these solids have been classified into conductors, insulators, and semiconductor. What is the need of studying this band theory of solid is that we till now we just had an understanding that there is a solid and the different characteristic of a solid, and that characteristic of solid have been studied, but how these solids have been classified into conductors, insulators, and semiconductors. Now, in order to understand this classification, so we need to understand the energy band theory of solid. So now that is the reason that we are studying about the energy band structure of solid. So the energy band structure of a solid is actually determining whether the given solid is said to be a conductor or an insulator or a semiconductor. So in order to understand this classification, so we just take an important aspect of solid. So let us consider a solid is consisting of a numerous number of atoms which are closely packed with each other, and each atom is having a particular energy level. We say that discrete, and why we say that discrete energy level? Why? Because when you see an energy level, so energy levels, it appears to be what you can say like a band mixed, but it is actually, when you talk about a hydrogen atom, we just taken the example of hydrogen atom, so it appears that the energy, there will be a gap in between the two consecutive energy levels, right? So now let us consider an isolated atom which is having an discrete energy level. So if we imagine n number of atoms of the solid which is to be isolated from one another, they would have completely coinciding. And let us study about this energy levels of an isolated atoms very closely, right? So here we are interested in differentiating the solid with respect to the energy bands in the solid. So what is that energy band in the solid? So in the lower classes you studied about the electronic configuration, and you studied about the valence shells, right? So if numerous number of valence shells are combining with each other, whatever the energy band you can just see that energy band is, we say that that is called valence band, right? So now that is the reason that we studied about the valence band. So we want to discuss the classification of solid into conductors, insulators, and semiconductor in terms of band theory of solid. That is called energy band theory of solid. So first, whatever you know, right, in the previous classes, you know that what is valence electrons, right? The outermost electron which is existing in the element, we say that is called the valence electron. So if you combine the such electrons, right, so that electrons will you know that each electron is have a particular energy level. So when you combine all that energy levels, whatever the energy band that appears, that considered to be energy valence band, right? So I think that you had a clear idea regarding the valence band, right? So now the valence electron, you can just see valence electron constitute a single system of electrons common to the entire crystal, and therefore if there is n number of electrons, and you will have a different energy levels. So now so we just take an example here, you can just see the energy levels. We just take an example of sodium atom. So in the sodium atom, we had an electronic configuration of sodium atom. You already know 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, and 3s1. You can just see in the figure, it has been shown to you. In this particular figure, we just say that when you take this particular on the x-axis, if you take internuclear distance, and the energy level is taken on the y-axis, you can just see this. See this 1s is completely filled, 2s and 2p is filled, and 3s state is unfilled 3s state, right? Only one electron is having, so that is called unfilled state, and we just say that unfilled state here in the case of the sodium. So now the energy levels of the sodium, you can just see the how these energy levels is considered to be the bands, right? So the energy levels of the sodium becomes band when the atoms are very close to each other, and here the R naught, you can see this, what is that, is R naught? R naught is the distance between the atoms in the solid sodium. When the atoms are combined and they interact with each other, the electrons will have a different energy, right? So now this is the case of the energy band in the solid, and particularly we take an example of sodium. So in the energy band, the allowed energies are almost continuous. So what is the reason of saying that is called an allowed energies? So you can just see the allowed energies are almost continuous. You can just take the example of, see again we'll just consider this figure. In this particular figure you can just see filled state is 1s2. You can see 1s2 is completely filled. We say that this is 1s2 or 2s2, so that is considered to be the continuous one. So these energy bands are in general separated by some regions, and when you which have no energy levels, then the region is called energy gap. You can just see this there is a gap here. There you find where there is no energy level, so we just say that is called no energy level. So these regions is called forbidden gap or the energy gap. So the amount of splitting this is not same for the different energy levels. Now if there are n atoms, you can see if there are n atoms, then definitely you will have n quantum states in the each band, and each state can occupy 2n electrons, right? So now the band which is found by the valence electron is called valency band. The allowed energy bands, when you say allowed energy bands, so the electrons which has the highest energy above the valence band, that is called the permitted energy level, and that is we'll call such a band of the energy levels is considered to be conduction band. So the conduction band corresponds to the first excited state, and the electrons are very much freely moving in this particular band, and we'll say that that is called conduction electron. And the interval between this conduction and the valence band, or you can just say the gap between the valence and the conduction band, so we say that is called forbidden gap. You can just see again we just take an example of see x-axis we just taken we have taken the internuclear distance. This is called internuclear distance, right? Nucleus of two consecutive atoms or two or more consecutive atoms. If you take an example of the sodium, you can take any example. Just for our convenience, we have taken the example of sodium, where you find that the distances between the two neighboring nucleus, so nuclei. So that is the reason that we say internuclear distances. So this is completely filled. You can just see, you can just see the figure where you can see that these particular level is completely filled, and this is empty, and we'll say the forbidden gap. Here this you can just say this is partially filled. So we say that particular band is nothing but valence band. So it is completely filled, this is partially filled, and there is a gap in between the valence and conduction band. So again, this particular aspect has been shown to you with the another figure. So for your understanding, you can see equilibrium spacing or internuclear distances of different elements. On the x-axis we have taken, on the y-axis we just taken the energy, and we have shown you in this particular figure. So we talk about a solid. So how the classification of solid is appearing with respect to the metal, semiconductor and the insulator. So once if someone asks you how you can differentiate between the metal or conductor, semiconductor and insulator, you can just differentiate with respect to the depending upon their equilibrium spacings. Now how we can say this is valence or the conduction band with respect to with respect to the conduction and valence band and the forbidden energy gap, this is the figure which just tells us regarding the classification of the solids. Now this is actually the band theory of solids, which one can understand how the solid has been classified depending upon the bands of the given energies of the solid. They have been classified into conductors, insulators and the semiconductor, right? So now I think you got a clear idea regarding the band theory of solids. So the band theory of solids gives us the information how the solids have been classified into three different categories, that is the conductor, insulators and the semiconductors. Now so why an engineering student should understand, or why he is learning about semiconductors? Why? Because your computer, your PCs is your first we just discussed about your processor. So your processor is actually a semiconducting device. So an engineering student should understand what is actually the meaning of semiconducting material, or what is actually semiconductor, and how this semiconductor has been classified into different categories. In the lower classes, you just discuss what is actually the meaning of semiconductors and how many types of semiconductors are there. In this particular unit, we'll just discuss about the semiconducting material and the charge carriers. We will just deal with the complete information regarding the charge carriers which is existing in the semiconductor, and how this semiconductor is a very important aspect of the computing device, and how it is semiconducting material is used in the even in the quantum computers, that is called quantum computing. So in the in this particular era, quantum computing right is an hot and happening topic. So we just discussed about the quantum computing also in the later section, but we just start with our semiconducting material here. So now this is what you can say, a semiconducting material or semiconducting material. So what is actually the semiconductor industry is all about? So a semiconductor devices, you already know that there are different semiconducting devices we use in the computers. So actually, what is actually the computer? You already had information regarding what is actually the computer means. A computer is an electronic device. So an engineering student should have an understanding what is actually this electronic device is used for in daily life, and also for the professional aspect. So here just we'll start with our daily life concept, where actually the semiconductor devices are being used. So this is the semiconductor devices. Semiconducting devices are used such as diodes or transistors, or the ICs, that is called integrating circuits, can be used for many applications in the daily life, your televisions, your washing machines, right, and automobiles, right. This is the common daily life things that a layman is using, right. Semiconductor devices are used in televisions and automobiles, washing machines and computers. So definitely, so this particular aspect. So now you got an idea why we need to understand about why we need to study about the semiconducting material, right. So now, so we just discussed about, we just start our topic with the introduction to the semiconductor. So today's lecture in the regarding the semiconductor, first of all we'll just define the semiconductors, right, and how this semiconductor, when you talk about semiconductor, definitely the next thing that is coming into our mind is silicon or germanium. So probably we use mostly we'll just use the silicon, right. So now again, so the classification of semiconductor is either that semiconductor is a pure semiconductor or the impure semiconductor, and we say that that is called intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductor. Now, so now this is about the, and then we just discuss about what is actually p-n junction, p-type. See, intrinsic semiconductor, pure semiconductor, right. So here we'll give our importance to the extrinsic semiconductor because of its high electrical conductivity. So we'll just give due importance to the extrinsic semiconductor. So when you talk about extrinsic semiconductor, definitely one should know what is actually p-n junction diodes, right. Now, why we use semiconductors? See, when you talk about semiconductors, the first thing that is come to your mind is that silicon. So first we start with the silicon. So these silicons are actually used in the MOSFET integrated circuits, right, and LEDs, light emitting diodes, and how these LEDs are exhibiting the different colors. So if it is green and blue, you can just see that is a combination of gallium, right. You can just see the combination of gallium arsenic, right, and phosphorus. These are called laser diodes, right. And the photodiodes, especially for the electrical and electronics engineering and computer sciences, will use this diodes and diodes, and particularly we just laser diodes, and also the pin photodiodes are used, and these they will exhibit different colors. So either it may be red, blue, green, right. So depending upon the doping element, so that will be green, blue, red, and so on. So now, so semiconductors are having the electrical properties. You already know, when someone asks you what is actually semiconductor in terms of the electrical properties, so you should tell that semiconductors are the materials whose electrical properties are actually lying between the conductors and the insulators. So example, just take an example of pure semiconductor, that is called silicon and germanium, and the conductivity value we have just you can just see that this is the conductivity value of insulator, semiconductor, and the conductor. You can just see this electrical conductivity value 10 power of minus 18 per ohm meter, and the electrical conductivity value for semiconductor is 10 power of minus 8 per ohm meter, and the conductor is 10 power of plus 18 per ohm meter. Now this is a semiconducting material. So when you say semiconducting material, we just say start with the intrinsic semiconductor. So that is also known as elemental semiconductor, that is silicon and germanium. And these silicon and germanium is actually taken from the periodic table, that is called column 4th of the periodic table, and the combination of the compound semiconductors has been taken from the 3rd and the 5th column. I will show you the periodic table also. You can just see this is a periodic table, so where you can see here silicon, germanium, semiconductor material. So this is a semiconducting material which has been taken from, you can see there is a 4th A. Now so semiconducting materials is very important for the even for the electronic and optical properties. So now an engineer will have a very great flexibility in the designing the electronic and the optoelectronic functions, and germanium is widely used in the previously, right? So in previous days germanium was widely used in the case of transistors and the diodes. So here now actually, so we use the silicon more when compared with the germanium. So the silicons are used for the majority of the rectifier, transistors, and the integrating circuits, right? So now, so these compounds are very high speed devices, and these devices require emission and the absorption of the light, right? So now the electronic and the optical properties of semiconductors are strongly affected. Now you can see that we discuss in the unit 1 the different crystalline solids, crystalline, amorphous, and the polycrystalline solid. This has been studied in the unit 1. So this how this is related to your silicon and germanium, we'll see here. Now yeah, we start with the silicon atom here. So silicon atom, see silicon atom, the work of the different scientists, that is Bohr, Planck, and Einstein. So they developed the study about the atomic structure. So they have given different views regarding how this atom is there and how the electrons are moving around the nucleus and so on. They had their own way of explaining the things. Now we just start see I just told you that nowadays we'll use more silicon when compared with the germanium. So first we'll just discuss about the silicon. So silicon is actually belonging to the 4th group material, and which is having an atomic number of 14. And you can see that when I say atomic number 14, so how many number of you'll find that 14 positive charged protons and 14 neutrons in the nucleus, and the 14 electrons which are orbiting, right, around the nucleus. Now so the Pauli exclusion principle, so we need to understand the Pauli exclusion principle. Just the previous knowledge, Pauli exclusion principle says that no two electrons in an atom or a molecule can share exact same quantum number or quantum specification. So there will be no more than 2 electrons in a particular orbit, right? So when you talk about s orbital, only 2 electrons can stay in the s orbital. So actually the bond which is existing in the silicon atom is nothing but it is a covalent bond. So you can just see this, the covalent bond is formed by sharing of the electrons, right? You already know that what is actually the covalent bond. So this is only for your previous knowledge. We just gathering our things, but what you studied in the lower classes. We started with the semiconductor, intrinsic semiconductor, and when you talk about intrinsic, silicon and germanium. And germanium, germanium is used in the previous previous era. So now, so at present we just use the silicon. So that is the reason that we are studying about the silicon, right, to the depth level, right? So in the silicon you find that the bonding is between the atoms is actually due to the covalent bond. So you can see now the example we have just taken silicon See, you can have silicon atomic number, and you can just see this schematic diagram, how this atomic structure of silicon look like, right? So band theory, just now we just studied about the band theory, so right. So again, we need not to go for this. Right, semiconductor, you need to see semiconductor. So again, we just repeat this. Some materials which is having filled valence electron, and just like the insulator, but a small gap of the conduction band. So at 0 Kelvin temperature, so they behave same semiconductor at the temperature, that is 0 Kelvin temperature. So they behave as an insulator. As I increase the temperature, the same material will exhibit the conductivity property. So therefore, depending upon the temperature, so when you say that if the temperature is decreasing, so we say that that particular element is a insulator, and if you increase the temperature, we say that that particular element, same element, is actually exhibiting a different characteristic. That characteristic is known as the semiconducting properties, right? So now again we have shown this. See, carbon, when you possible, we just discussed about the possible semiconducting material. So what are the possible semiconducting material? So either you take an example of carbon, silicon, germanium, tin and lead. So we just, why silicon only? Why cannot be carbon used for the semiconducting material, and why cannot we use the germanium for the latest for quantum computing also? We will use the silicon. Why not we go for germanium? That should be the question of an engineering student. So why? Because see, because when you say the carbon is very expensive, and see, when you use a semiconducting material, so that semiconductor material, first of all, it should be cost effective, and second important aspect, how that can be used for the application point of view. So that application point of view, it depends upon the band gap also. So right, so now if I use the carbon, it is very expensive, and the band gap is very large, that is 6 electron volt, and definitely we cannot produce it. Difficult to produce without high contamination. So now germanium, why not we go for a germanium? So why? Because it is a high mobility character, and it is a very pure material, right? So that, and it is a and the what you can say, these oxides are very what you can say problematic for us for the electronic devices. So the electronic devices, for the electronic devices you require what is a very high pure material, and that can be doped with a what you can say phosphorus. For example, we take an example of phosphorus. So that should increase the electrical conductivity. So silicon only, why we go for silicon only? Because it's very cheap and very high purity it will have, and it is very much perfect for the integrated circuit applications, right? So now this is the reason that why we are only going for silicon. Why not we are going for the carbon and germanium? So this is reasons why we not prefer the carbon, germanium, tin and lead, right? So we just go for silicon. This is for this reason. Now this is very important. Why we just discuss about the silicon semiconducting material. Why only we use the silicon material for the electronic devices, right? So different germanium also, you can just see that the atomic structure of germanium. So this is the atomic structure of germanium. So we will use the germanium, but when compared with the silicon, see the application of silicon is more, right? Because of this band gap also, you can just see band gap. So now we just discussed about the intrinsic and the extrinsic semiconductor. So here we just discuss about the electrons and holes, right? See, when I say semiconducting material, so semiconducting material will have two types of charge carriers, right? So when I say semiconducting material, two charge carriers. In a metal, we'll have only one charge carrier, that is electrons. So when you go for a semi-metal or semiconductor, you'll have two charge carriers, that are electrons and holes. So what is actually the concept of hole? So at 0 Kelvin temperature, so we'll just see, now our discussion will concise to the bands, right? Bands means valence band, conduction band and forbidden band. We talk about valence, conduction and the forbidden band. So when you discuss when we discuss about the electrons and holes, right? So we just concise our study to the valence conduction and the forbidden gap. So now here what is, you can just see this figure. So at zero temperature, so when you talk about silicon, right, we just take 0 Kelvin temperature, all the electrons are bonded, and we already know that in silicon which type of bonding is there, covalent bond. So no carrier is available for conduction. So at T is equal to 0 Kelvin, you find that the silicon material is exhibiting a property of insulator, right? So as I increase my temperature from 0 Kelvin, slowly, definitely due to the fluctuations, right, the electrons will move from valence band to the conduction band. So when the electron is moving from valence band to the conduction band, definitely some vacancy is left, some vacancy is what you can say is forming in the valence band. So that vacancy, we say that vacancy is nothing but hole. So you can just see this is a schematic diagram where the electron is jumping from the valence band to the conduction band. So the vacancy which has been created here, so that vacancy, we'll call that vacancy as the hole. So now I think that you got a clear idea what is the concept of hole. So in the examination, if we'll ask you what is explain the concept of hole, then definitely you need to write this and you need to draw this diagram. So when what is happening, so this concept of hole and electron is completely dependent on the temperature. So as you increase the temperature due to some thermal fluctuation, so the electrons move from the valence band to the conduction band, and whatever the empty space which is residing in the valence band, that empty space is nothing but the hole, right? So what is happening here? It has been given by a very clear picture of the concept of hole. So as I increase the temperature from T 0 Kelvin to some K Kelvin, right? Let us consider that we talk about a temperature called some K Kelvin, right? So some electrons in the valence band receive enough thermal energy to be excited across the band gap to the conduction band, and the result with some electrons you will get an empty conduction band, and here you can just see this empty space. You can see small white circles are there, they are moving here. So EV is resembling the energy of the valence band, and here EC, you can just see this is EC, we'll just say that is called the conduction band. The gap between the EV and EC is nothing but EF, and we'll call such a gap as nothing but we'll call that is called Fermi level, or that is represented with E suffix F. Now, so the result in the material, some electrons is empty, you find that the conduction band is somewhat empty, and some unoccupied states will be there in the valence band, and these empty state which is in the valence band is considered to be the hole. If the conduction band electron and the hole are created by excitation of the valence band, the electron to the conduction band, they are called electron hole pair. We just say that electron hole pairs in a semiconductor. At the bottom you can see the diagram, right? So if you have not understood, you can just see the diagram, right? So very clearly given in the diagram. So the electron hole pairs in the semiconductor, the bottom of the conduction band denotes the EC, and the top of the valence band denotes EB. Now this is about the electrons and the hole concept. So the charge carriers which are there in the semiconductors are nothing but electrons and holes. So right, now we'll move to the next concept. So this is a structure, lattice structure of the silicon. So what is intrinsic? We just discussed. It is a perfect semiconducting crystal where there will find no impurities. Why we require impurities? Why we talk about impurities? Why? Because we want to improve the electrical conductivity of that particular material. So once you increase the electrical conductivity, why we should increase the electrical conductivity? When you increase the electrical conductivity, definitely they can be used for various applications. So in order to use it for various applications, we'll dope or we'll use the impurities in the material, right? You can just see this electron pairs, hole pairs in the covalent bond, silicon, see. So at intrinsic, see, you can just see at intrinsic semiconductor, when you talk about intrinsic semiconductor, at given temperature there is a certain concentration of electron and hole. So you just say that recombination rate, Ri suffix I is recombination rate. So the recombination rate is actually equal to the electron hole pair, that is given by G suffix I. Now they are completely dependent, and what is actually the strength when you talk about extrinsic material or extrinsic semiconductor. So first of all, we just deal with the n-type semiconductor. See, when I talk about extrinsic semiconductor, definitely you'll have a, we tell that that is called p-type extrinsic semiconductor, n-type extrinsic semiconductor. So now we start with the n-type extrinsic semiconductor. So what is actually the meaning of n-type semiconductor? So when I say n-type, it is called, for our convenience, for shortcut, we just write it down as donation of electron. So n-type semiconductor in the bracket, the n-type semiconductor will donate the electron, right? So now you take any semiconductor, either it may be germanium or silicon. So at 0 Kelvin, right? See, what will happen at 0 Kelvin? The same semiconductor will act as a insulator. So if you increase that temperature, so 50 to 100 Kelvin, for example, so what you can say, the electrons in the impurity level donated to the conduction band, and such impurity level is called donor level. You can just see this ED. You can see in the diagram ED, where the ED is formed, and here where you will find which element we are taking. We are taking the column 5th element, impurity element is added to the pure semiconductor, that is germanium and silicon, and we say that that is called donor impurities. You can just see the figure where at 0 Kelvin what is happening, and at the, if you increase the temperature, for example 50 Kelvin, so what is happening, right? You can just see here there is an electron. If I increase the temperature to 50 Kelvin, these electrons is moving towards the conduction band, and it is donating the electron. The electron is donated to the donation of electron from donor level to the conduction band. So we could say that the given semiconductor doped with a significant number of donor atoms at room temperature, this is called n-type material. So now this is about the n-type material. See, n-type material donor level is very near to the conduction band, and in the p-type you can say that the EC, that is called what you can say, acceptance, that is very nearer to the valence band. So here we just take the third column, and here the electrons has been, you can see the electrons here in the valence band. You can just see the valence band at T is equal to 0 Kelvin. All the electrons are completely filled in the valence band. So if I increase the temperature beyond the 0 Kelvin, so the electrons move towards the EA. EA, what is that EA? EA is the acceptor level. We say that is called acceptor level, which will accept the electron coming from the valence band. So that come under the category of column 3. So this is added to germanium and silicon. So why we are adding? We want to increase the electrical conductivity of germanium and silicon. And why we are increasing the electrical conductivity? We want to use it for its various applications. If you increase the electrical conductivity, then we can use that particular semiconductor for various applications. And what are that applications? In the coming classes, you will understand for what purpose we are increasing electrical conductivity, and where actually we are using these semiconducting devices, right? And see, they can create a semiconductor with a whole concentration, and this is called p-type semiconductor. And you can just see this is called donor and acceptors. So the donor, when we have talked about donor and acceptor, you can see that schematic diagram. See, here there is a donor level. Here you will find that acceptor level. So this is actually the bond which is formed between these atoms are nothing but, you should remember, that is called the covalent bonding. So what is happening to the increase when I increase the conductivity? You can just see what is happening. You can just see this was seen by the schematic diagram. When you increase this conductivity, see, injecting the arsenic into the crystal with an, see, we are just injecting. You can just see here silicon was there, and we have injected, instead of silicon we have injected the arsenic. So arsenic is a group 5 element with 5 electrons in the outermost shell. So this extra impurity which has been added, so to increase the electrical conductivity. Now this is the type of doping which is taking place inside the silicon. So either you can use the arsenic, or else you can use the boron also. That is also an impurity element which is added to the pure semiconductor for the application perfect. Now this is the in today's class we just discussed about the energy band theory, and depending upon this energy band theory, how the solids have been classified into conductors, semiconductors and the insulator. And we just discussed about what is actually the meaning of semiconductor, and why an engineering student should understand about the semiconductor and how the semiconductors have been classified. So these semiconductors have been classified into intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductor, and why this is p-type semiconductor and n-type semiconductor. We are giving due importance to this. Why? Because it is having great applications if you increase the conductivity. So now in the next class we just and also we just discuss about the concept of hole also. So in the next class we just start up with the electrical conductivity, or we say that charge carriers in semiconductors are holes and electrons. So that we will definitely discuss in the today next class, right?